Once upon a time, the human mind was a sacred tool, a vessel for truth, discernment, and divine intelligence. But in our modern age, that sacred instrument has been corrupted. The ability to think, to truly think, is dying. In its place stands noise, distraction, and blind conformity. Carl Jung saw it coming long before it arrived. He warned of a world where people would no longer know what they believe, what they feel, or even who they are. A world where man would be replaced not by machines, but by mechanical thinking. The death of critical thought, Jung said, would mark the death of the individual soul. The death of critical thinking did not begin with social media or technology. It began much earlier in the subtle decay of man's inner world. Jung believed that thought itself is a spiritual process, an act of consciousness that bridges the inner and outer realms. When a person stops questioning their assumptions, they cease to evolve. When a society stops questioning its beliefs, it begins to rot from within. Today, that rot is everywhere. People repeat slogans, not ideas. They consume opinions, not knowledge. They confuse emotion for truth and validation for wisdom. Jung once said, "Thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge." In that single sentence, he summarized the tragedy of our age. We live in an information ocean, billions of voices screaming for attention. And yet, the more we know, the less we understand. Every scroll, every click, every post feeds us fragments of reality without ever showing us the whole. This fragmentation of consciousness is precisely what Jung warned about. He called it the mass psyche, the collective hypnosis that emerges when individuals stop thinking for themselves. When we outsource our opinions to the crowd, we lose the soul of discernment. We become predictable, programmable, and easily controlled. Critical thinking, Jung said, is not about doubting everything. It is about seeing clearly. It requires courage, the courage to stand apart from the herd, to hold tension between opposites, to confront the unknown without collapsing into ideology. Most people cannot bear that tension. They want simple answers, quick comfort, and emotional certainty. They want to belong, even if it means betraying the truth. So they surrender their intellect to the mob and call it progress. But Jung understood something deeper. The loss of critical thought is not just an intellectual issue, it is spiritual. When man ceases to think for himself, he becomes possessed by the ideas of others. Mind becomes a stage where foreign archetypes perform their play, the hero, the victim, the savior, the fool. He forgets that he is the actor, not the role. And soon, the collective mind consumes him completely. This, Jung said, is the beginning of psychic death. You see, real thinking, is painful. It demands solitude. It demands silence. It demands the ability to stand in uncertainty without losing your soul. That is why modern man avoids it. He fills every quiet moment with noise, every empty second with stimulation. He fears silence because silence reveals how empty his thoughts truly are. Jung observed that man's flight from thought mirrors his flight from self. To think critically is to confront your own darkness, your biases, your fears, your contradictions. And that confrontation is terrifying. So instead of thinking, we react. Instead of learning, we scroll. Instead of wisdom, we chase dopamine. The modern world rewards speed, not depth. It glorifies opinion over insight. It punishes the still, the reflective, the contemplative. Carl Jung would call this the rise of the collective shadow. When we suppress our individuality, our critical faculties, our capacity for judgment, all that repressed power doesn't disappear. It becomes dark energy, the shadow of a civilization that no longer knows itself. Look around. The evidence is everywhere. Political polarization, moral confusion, identity obsession, symptoms of a species that has lost the ability to see beyond its own projections. We are not debating truth anymore. We are defending egos. We are worshipping opinions as gods. In this chaos, thinking, the act of calm reflection, has become revolutionary. Jung would not be surprised. He once wrote, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you do know, the world will tell you." That is precisely what has happened. Our culture now tells us what to think, what to believe, what to desire. The system no longer needs to suppress thought, it distracts it into oblivion. In this digital trance, man mistakes awareness for consciousness. But they are not the same. Awareness sees. Consciousness understands. To revive critical thinking, Jung would say, we must return to the inner world. We must reclaim solitude, the forgotten cathedral of the human mind. In solitude, thought becomes sacred again. It ceases to be manipulation and becomes meditation. Solitude allows ideas to breathe, to expand, to clash, to evolve. Only then can we discover what we truly believe, beyond social conditioning and ideological hypnosis. To think critically is not to rebel for rebellion's sake. It is to pursue truth, even when truth offends the tribe. It is to love wisdom more than comfort. It is to die, if necessary, for clarity of mind. Jung's message was not academic, it was existential. He warned that if man loses his capacity to think, he will lose his soul. Because the mind is the instrument through which spirit touches matter. When the instrument breaks, the song stops playing. But there is hope. Every awakened thinker reignites the light of civilization. Every moment of introspection repairs a fragment of the collective mind. Thinking is contagious, as is stupidity. Which one spreads depends on you. Carl Jung believed that the fate of the world depends on the transformation of the individual. Not systems, not governments, not ideologies, but one mind, illuminated, disciplined, free. To think critically in an age of manipulation is the purest act of rebellion. It is the final form of courage. The world will continue to drown in noise. But somewhere, a few souls will choose silence. In that silence, they will rediscover the most powerful thing man ever possessed: his ability to think.